Okay, here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Not Your Typical Business podcast. I'm your host, Katie Hanna, aka Not Your Typical Bookkeeper. I'm the owner and CEO of Details Matter Bookkeeping and Advisory. And today I have with me Jill Maenner from Ternion Builders. So Jill, tell us, give me like the 30-second elevator pitch about the business. And then I want to hear about your journey. Like, how did you get to where you are now?
I love telling my story, so I'm excited to have this opportunity. Thanks for inviting me. I'm Jill Maenner from Ternion Builders. We are a commercial contractor based here in Frederick, Maryland. We specialize in general contracting, construction management. We do a little site development. We do some value engineering. We do design build services and tenant build outs. So if you are a property owner, if you are a commercial broker, if you are a business owner who's looking to build a space from scratch or renovate an existing space, we are here for that. We do educational, medical, retail, restaurant spaces, office, you name it, all things businesses, big and small.
And how did you get here? Because there's not a ton of women in the building industry. So how did you get into this?
As a matter of fact, less than 10% of the workforce in the construction industry is female. So I'm not a builder by trade. I actually went to school for education and I hold a teaching certificate. So I got into construction through marriage. My life partner is also my business partner. And so we've been together. We'll be celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. And so, thank you very much. It's a big year for us and for Ternion. Ternion will be celebrating its 10th anniversary in October.
I just celebrated my 10th anniversary.
A lot of 10-year-olds out there. I'm loving it.
This year, 2026.
Loving it.
And 2016 was a big year, is really what it is.
Right. So basically, we started as just a couple debriefing about our day at the dinner table, right? And we tell our tales from our work day. And it didn't take very long for me to realize that running a job site is very similar to running a classroom. And so if you think about it, like blueprints and drawings are the curriculum. And the curriculum is developed by experts and specialists. But then when we put that curriculum into practice, we hand it over to the people in the trenches. They're making decisions on the fly based on the conditions, based on the workforce and the teams that are there doing the work and performing the labor. And some teams are receptive to the coaching, the feedback, the supervision. Other teams need a little gentle guidance or, some firm discipline. And the goal is to deliver a product that is more refined, more beautiful than what you started with, right? And so the construction world and the classroom world to me had so many overlaps that it felt like we were doing the same thing day in and day out. It wasn't until some other life events happened that my partner, who has been in the industry for over 40 years and has a great reputation as well as the biggest knowledge base I know of anyone in the field, he made the decision that he was done making millions for other people, and he wanted to invest that time and that energy in helping himself become more financially secure. But he pitched the idea of his own business to me as a joint venture, as a partnership. And I was reluctant at first because, again, not a builder by trade. But yet it really spoke to this entrepreneurial sense that I've always had. My teaching colleagues will tell you that I've always had this desire for a side hustle. Whether, looking for the next big thing, whether it was in educational technology or curriculum or product, that's where I was going, trying to take what my expertise and turning it into a business. So I was hesitant because not a builder by trade, but I still was excited about the idea of running my own business. So we started in 2016, October 27th, I think is when we were officially registered with the state of Maryland. And my role was very much kind of behind the scenes. I took on administrative duties. I handled all the accounting and the payroll, as you know. Still working through that one, but I took on all the marketing and social media, and was really kind of lurking behind the scenes while Mark was out there in the field. He was actively bidding projects, meeting with clients, and managing operations. And then it wasn't until while he was doing that, he was also working as an adjunct instructor for the FCC Monroe Center. And he was teaching an Intro to Building Trades course. And so I would provide him some guidance on how to, structure a lesson and how to prepare materials. And
went back and forth.
100%, 100%. And then COVID hit. And everybody pivoted, right? Including all the teachers and instructors and professors out there. Meanwhile, in FCPS, I was part of an inaugural cohort of teachers called the FCPS Vanguard, who was building capacity in other teachers to leverage technology for personalized learning. Mark, on the other hand, had no experience with instructional technology at all, had never touched a learning management system in his life, and was just a fish out of water when it came to virtual instruction or virtual course materials. So he leaned on me heavily to post things on his behalf for his course. And I think it was a midterm exam or a final exam that he needed help with. And I tested it, the student-facing side, to make sure it worked the way it was supposed to. And I scored a 96% on that assessment. Like gold, never having attended his class. So all of this knowledge that I needed to perform well came through osmosis, right? That daily debriefing, and that was my light bulb moment that, okay, I can run this business. I can be the face of this business. I need to set aside any imposter syndrome I might be having and really just lean into this leadership role, because on paper, I'm a partner. I own 51% of the company. I need to start acting like it. And so since that time, I've been intentional about building up the brand, building up my visibility, so that people see me as an active member of the company, not a silent partner.
So if you could go back to 2016 and tell yourself something, what would you say to like you or your partner, just like that you're just starting out, what would you go back and tell yourself?
Is this telling me or telling any like new startup?
I think it translates into like, one of those things that, if you're just starting out, what is something that you wish you would have known, or you wish you would have, done something about. But it could also just be that, hey, it's going to be okay.
I got 10 years under my belt. And so if I could take some of the knowledge that I've accrued over that time and apply it to when we were first starting out, I would say I would say you got this. My time at serving as a classroom teacher really did prepare me for running a business, especially in this industry, because when I was teaching full time, I never really taught the same thing twice, ever. Like, and even if I taught the same grade level or the same content area, the kids are never the same, right? You get a different batch of kids every single school year. And at the
Learning
secondary
style.
level, you're getting a different batch every semester. And then, the school districts rarely have stagnant curriculum. They roll out new initiatives, roll out new programs all the time. And so that flexibility or building that flexibility by being a teacher has only set me up for success as a builder, because no two projects are the same. No two design teams are the same. No two clients are the same. And I would say that experience in any other field set me up for success in this industry. So any doubts I had getting into the industry could have been dispelled right away if I just had that mindset that I got this. I have enough life experience, work experience to be successful, regardless of if I feel like or if I have not dabbled enough in construction professionally.
Yeah. I think that's an amazing point. I'm going to have to do a whole podcast just about my journey, but I feel like we're very similar because I also had a totally different start, right? My degree's in animal behavior. I worked at an animal shelter, and it's so interesting how so much of that experience translated into what I do now, and how, so I think that's an important point to bring up to, either potential entrepreneurs or current small business owners, that really any prior experience that you had, you can kind of, twist it, or, you can spin that. I mean, I had to spin it when I was changing careers, because I actually got a job at a CPA firm. So I had to spin going from being working in an animal rescue, which a lot of the stuff that I did was administrative at the rescue. So pivoting that into being like an administrative assistant at a CPA was not too bad. And then when I was learning bookkeeping, there was a lot of that, you had to be detail oriented, right? And same thing at the shelter. Like, I had to go and harass my boss, who was the head vet, that, hey, if he didn't write anything down, like, I need something written down, right? This box can't be empty, right? Like, I don't care. And so we would, the kind of baseline would be BAR, bright, alert, and responsive. That's, you know what I mean? If nothing else, it has to say, BAR, that you looked at, did you look at this animal? Did you do an exam? If everything was fine, it still needs something, right? It can't be an empty box. So a lot of that translated. And then also just having to, be able to pivot. Like, I was working 5 different people's jobs, really. So a lot of it was administrative, but I was also, vet teching. I was also, would step in as an adoption counselor. I would do behavior assessments, like all kinds of different things that you had to kind of jump and pivot. And, and dealing with the hecticness of a busy season, because for animal rescue, and I was in Baltimore, so if you can imagine, there is a huge feral cat population. So springtime is kitten season, and there will never be a tax season that is busier than a kitten season that I've already dealt with, right? Like, you've learned to like handle the chaos.
Right.
And so I think that's a huge thing that you don't think about, because if you're thinking about, either starting your own business, if it's even in the same field, like my husband's kind of trying to start his own consulting for what he currently does for other people, as a, employee. But it's also, if you want to just totally pivot, I know people who got laid off from the federal government and then decided that they're going to start their own bakery, right? Like, that's not what they were doing before, but being able to, work in that environment and, deal with the pressures of that, sometimes even, pivoting is like, well, this is easier than what I was doing before, or at least it's prepared me for what I'm doing now. So I love that. And I feel that really hard because
It's all about the
very, very similar,
transferable
had to
skills,
totally
right?
change things, and it wasn't as big of a change as I thought, because the bookkeeping is a lot of administrative. It's categorizing. It's being able to, trying to put the best foot forward. A lot of, you want to have the best tax deductions. I've also had to work with people who are thinking about selling their business. So, not in any way cooking the books or anything, but giving them the most positive, spin, and and also just being able to present them in a way that a business owner can understand. So I definitely feel that a lot. What do you think was your biggest challenge so far that you've had to overcome?
Without a doubt, just wearing multiple hats as a small business owner. You and I built a relationship because bookkeeping and accounting was starting to fall by the wayside for my company, because we were just trying to get more work and stay cash flow positive. And the time that it took for our team of two in the beginning to do the accounting for like multi-million-dollar projects was just taking us away from the real work of keeping the money coming in through building relationships, talking to potential clients, marketing ourselves. So wearing multiple hats still is a challenge for us, because our team, while it has doubled in size since I think it has doubled in size in just the last 2 years, is still microscopic. It's a team of 4. So we have me, we have my partner Mark, and we have a senior superintendent named Eddie that we brought on board in January of 2024. And in June of 2025, we brought on board a senior project manager. So they help with the field operations, but all of those executive and administrative tasks are still on our shoulders. And wearing lots of hats was a challenge initially, and it continues to be so. So going back to your previous question about what would you tell your earlier self, I mean, I do think it's worthwhile to bring up the point that small business owners often find themselves in that situation where they're wearing lots of hats. And so I think it would be helpful for new business owners, especially, or budding entrepreneurs, to just be aware of their strengths, but also be aware of your Achilles heel, and to set yourself up for success. You can compensate for some of those weaknesses by being proactive and building a team to support you in those areas that are not your strong suits. So had I known how much time accounting would take me, I would have reached out to you when you were getting started, and we could have grown together.
Right? Yeah, it is. Well, and I'm the same way. So my Achilles heel is the marketing and social media, right? Because I'm a accountant, right? I'm very, it's left brain versus right brain, and so very rarely are people both a creative and a numbers person. I'm definitely more of a numbers person than a creative person, and I am just now putting a big marketing budget. Putting marketing in my budget, a significant amount to hire out these services this year, my 10th year. So, it's kind of like you said, it's if you could go back, it's, I held off on it so long because in my, opinion or whatever, there's not a lot of ROI for me, the return on investment, for, hiring somebody to do social media, because I'm not typically getting clients off of social media. It is becoming more of a thing than it was, but people are usually more referral based. But now I've switched my thinking on that. The mindset now is the ROI is that I don't have to do it, and I can be doing other better things with my time, right? So sometimes you have to flip that. Yeah, you have to flip that because you're like, well, I'm not going to make any by spending this money. I'm not going to make any money. But there's something to be said about if I spend this money, I will be freeing up time, and then I will be able to then go make more money, or, you know what I mean? I might be able to do some sort of revenue generating activity, right? Because I'm not having to do that other thing. So whatever your Achilles heel is, I think you're right. The sooner that you can, get that in your budget, or, start planning for it and hire that person, or, make some sort of deal. I've also made some, barters with people. You might have something that they need. So I think there's ways to get around it without, just shelling out a ton of cash. But I think that's a huge point, is that don't, wait until you're like just flush with cash, because that day may never come, right? You may always be, continuously reinvesting in your business, even if you are making a profit. It's not like it's all coming, back into my bank account. A lot of it's reinvested into the business for things like marketing, or for, a new website or whatever it is. But yeah, the sooner I think you can get those things off your plate, however you do that, the better off you're going to be. So I totally agree with that.
And that word scale means something.
Sorry, go ahead.
That word scale takes on a whole new meaning too, because oftentimes if you're a new business, one of the first relationships you are recommended to make is with a bank, right? Mm-hmm. So that you have a source of capital, whether it's for startup or growth. At some point, you're going to need that bank, right? And the banks will sometimes ask you for a business plan. They want some assurances to know that this isn't an off-the-cuff idea, but that you've invested some time to build out a solid approach to be successful. And so I'm going to go back to that question earlier about what would you tell your, self starting off, is think about those Achilles heels and build that into your business plan, so that, give yourself permission to wear all the hats initially, but at least build in that, extra help at 1 year, at 2 years, at 3 years. So you're phasing it in, and you don't have the pressure of having this team from the get-go. And you also don't have the pressure of needing to hire a lot of people when you've hit that wall and you just can't do it all.
Right. You can't hire, one of all of the things that you need all in 1 year. I like that idea of kind of staggering it out. Mm-hmm. Probably what I should have done, because I'm spending a lot of money, like I said, this year on different pieces of the marketing kind of process. And if I would have done like maybe, one last year and then kept adding on to it, because also your revenue is going to increase as you add, especially for something like marketing. But, you're going to increase your revenue. So the next year you'll be able to add more into your budget. So I kind of waited, but I also am like at 10 years. So I guess I have the amalgamation of all of that too. But it is tough. And especially if you're starting out, but I love that idea of like, start small, just get one of the hats off your head, but then make a plan to, get 2, 3, 4 off, maybe one a year, or, half a year, whatever it is, right? Whatever makes sense depending on how, fast you're growing, because there's limited hours, and you don't want to be one of those, business owners. Like there is a statistic, I don't know what it is, of how many businesses fail in the first year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And I think some of that is the business owner has burnt out, right? They're so overwhelmed by all of the things that come along with being a business owner. You went into it to do X, right? You went into it to build houses. You didn't go into it to do accounting and marketing and doing all of these things, but they come along with owning a business. Everybody has to do those things. And so I think it can get overwhelming very quickly. And that is another reason. Well, I think the main reason is financial difficulties. So, so being very wise about those things also, and listening to different, that's one of the reasons that I started this podcast, but it's also, why I network so much, why I talk to people. It's not just to get business for myself. It's also to just have all these people as, potential collaborators or people that I could turn to if I, wanted some advice. Cause again, it can be and we have such a similar, transition into this, even though we're in vastly different industries, that at some point, it doesn't matter what industry you are in. All of these business things that go on in the background are kind of universal.
Absolutely. You talk to more and more small business owners through these events, and you realize there are some universal truths, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I mentioned that I am a teacher by trade, and I do still hold a part-time position with Frederick County Public Schools. So I work shout out to the FCPS remote virtual program. I'm able to work virtually or teach virtually a few days a week in a part-time capacity. And one of the classes on my schedule is an 8th grade applied business and marketing class. And we are starting an entrepreneurship unit right now. And you talked about the statistics for businesses that go under in the first few years. And we just went over this week in 8th grade business class. 34.9% of businesses go under in the first 10 years. And the number one reason why businesses fail in that time period is the lack of capital and revenue. And then close second would be, oh gosh, I'm blanking out now, Katie. It has the technical term is just escaping me right now.
My God, it happens to me all the time. I totally know
it relates to no market value now. Like, and I gave when I was working with my
market differentiation.
Maybe. The example I gave to my 8th graders was Blockbuster. Like, if you think about Blockbuster when we were in 8th grade, like that was the place to be on Friday nights, right? You went to Blockbuster, you picked out the movies you were going to rent for the weekend, and you got this rush of adrenaline when the copy that you wanted was there, and you walked out of Blockbuster so deflated when all the copies of the hot new release had been checked out before you got there. Do we need a Blockbuster anymore, in 2026? No, because we have streaming services now, and any movie from any era is available at our fingertips at any time. Yeah. And so it's businesses like
the market has changed.
There we go. Yeah.
Like that. Something
it's like a diminished demand.
So I want to kind of switch gears, and I want to talk a little bit more about, because I want to get some insights from different people's industries, because I'm talking to all kinds of, not just accounting people, not just, a single industry. So what is something that you, some advice that you would give to small business owners? Let's say either if they're, new and they want to start like a brick and mortar, they need a new space, or they need a space, or to somebody who's maybe growing and now they need, they're looking at, either getting a bigger space or moving from the, I'm working from home to like actually having an office.
Sure.
So for what you do, like, I feel like if I were to try to I wanted to start a Frederick office of Details Matter, I would have absolutely no idea where to start.
First step would be to collaborate with someone that can provide you with a detailed plan of what that space could look like. Now, I mentioned earlier, we do provide design build services. So when I would say 80% of our clientele is missing that design piece when they come to us. And so we get that process started for them. But eventually, in order for a plan to get approved, we need some architect to stamp the design and finalize things with different engineers depending on the type of project. It might be a structural engineer, civil engineer, mechanical engineer, all of the engineers to sign. Yeah, if we're building from a base building from the ground up, there's a big team of engineers and designers that are creating that plan. But the more detailed a plan you can bring to your builder, the more accurate of a budget you're going to receive, and the more accurate of a schedule you're going to receive, because in every industry, time is money. And especially when you've contracted a builder like us, you don't want to be buried in invoices for time that's not devoted to the actual construction. And so if you can find someone who can work with you on a somewhat detailed plan, we can absolutely help get you in the right direction of other specialists who will have a permit ready set of drawings to move ahead with. It's also like a good idea to have a sense of how much space you actually need, because oftentimes you'll drive around down the road, you'll see a for lease sign or a for sale sign, and people will feel inspired and say, I could put a ice cream shop there. I could put my dental office there. And in reality, when they get into conversations with us, they either need a lot more space than what the site actually provides, or they need less space. And so if you have an idea of how much space you actually need, that's going to only save you in the long run, because you don't want to overspend or underspend on your lease.
Yeah.
Everything
people come to you to talk about that sort of thing before they've, signed any leases, before they probably, I would assume, before they've even gone to the bank, because they need to get a quote for you to kind of build that plan to be able to say, hey, I need $100,000 from the bank, 200,000, whatever it is, right?
And sometimes it's like a vicious circle, because your financing is dependent upon the space that you have earmarked for your business, but the space that you've earmarked or the landlord or the property owner is contingent upon financing from the bank. And so you can't get yourself in this really like vicious cycle that feels like you're not getting any kind of direction or making any headway at all. And so
get out of that?
How do
somebody's got to give, I guess, at some point.
Because, I mean, we found ourselves in that position too, just as a new business getting started. Because I mentioned, building that relationship with the bank initially, and the bank didn't see much on paper because we didn't have a physical location. We didn't have assets that belonged to the business yet because we hadn't been established.
And that's really tough if you're not established at all.
Right.
Like, it's a little bit easier once you're established and you have revenue and they can see, hey, you can afford to, take a loan. You have credit, right? Like, you have business credit, because it's, not necessarily the same thing as your personal credit, though. I think you can use that. Like, you can have, kind of co-sign on it. But like, your business has to establish credit.
Mm-hmm. So I can't say that I have a magic wand that would, make that go away for a lot of people. So
I think you're right. Having the relationship with the banker helps. Like, and when we say that, we mean like an actual person. Like, I don't think until I owned the business, like, I didn't go into the bank and like talk to people. Like, I didn't have a person at the bank that I knew their name and they knew me and we would email. Like, that all came when I had the business. Now I have somebody at the bank. Like, I have their email. I know them. Like, I've gone in there.
You dial.
Yeah, I don't know about on speed dial, but I do have the number to the Walkersville branch. And, so and I know most of the people in there. So if I have a problem, I've also, there's just weird stuff. Like when I was changing my payroll, like you have to get things notarized for the states. And so I've had to go, so I'll be like, oh, so-and-so there? Cause I know that, there's only like one person that can notarize. So like, there's just things that, even beyond I need a loan. Cause I have a line of credit, but I've never really like had to get like a capital loan for construction or for starting a business. But those things I think are going to be easier for you when you have a relationship with somebody, that, you talk to them, you've maybe, even if you're going in, I think, and asking questions, like they're going to know your face, if you just go in and have a conversation with whoever their, like their commercial loan officer, get to know them and, pick their brain and kind of ask them what the options are and things. That's already going to be like, okay, I remember this person. I know this I've talked to them. That's going to kind of start that relationship. So I heavily agree with that, it's not just picking a bank. It's also like, getting to know the people that are working there, especially at the local branch, like where you're going to go in.
And I feel like Frederick is really rich in these community banks. And they can support small businesses in a way that maybe other areas in Maryland can't.
Yeah, or a big national bank is just going to be forget it. Whereas the smaller banks are, they can kind of make some deals. They can, give you, and they also are much better at like, I think at a big national bank, it's going to be hard to like get a meeting and like sit down with somebody. Whereas, you go to a local and it's like, you can sit down and, like I said, just ask them questions, just be able to like consult with them. Because the ones that I've met are all like very passionate about helping the small business community. So they would love that. They would love you to come in and ask those questions and let them sort of guide you on the path before you're even ready to sit down and sign loan documents, right? To like even kind of point you in the right direction on the process. So I don't know how we got from like our accounting and construction to like, now we need to get a banker on here. To talk.
Well, part of that whole question, it is part of that whole question of, how does a new business person, a new entrepreneur get out of that vicious cycle of, financing contingent upon a signed lease, contingent upon financing. And so it really makes it clear to me that relationship with
really good friends with the landlord and let them be like, hey, I'll kind of like put a hold or something until you get the bank worked out, or the bank is going to, give you something as like a pre-approval or something like that, because that's what they do for mortgage. So I guess you might be able to get those kinds of things of we've pre-approved you for this amount and then we'll work out the details.
Yes.
But
so you're
not
100% right about the pre-approval.
Yeah. Unless you have like that relationship.
The pre-approval will absolutely work in your favor. And so knowing a rough idea of how much space you need, having an idea of how much you can afford, in terms of a build out or construction cost is huge. And then just starting to build that design team so that they can create a plan that really meets your needs in the long run, right? Like if you're going to put in that substantial of an investment on a physical space, you don't want to be moving in 3 years, right? You want to be there for the long haul. So because of that ROI, right? I was just in a meeting this morning with someone with someone who was talking about a company overseas who during COVID invested a ton of money in construction in a new facility here in Frederick County, and they were gone in 5 years. And it's a state-of-the-art biotech facility that's now just empty. And you got to wonder, like, are they still in business? Like, did that construction project put them under because they invested so much in cutting edge technology? And then
a lot of times stuff like that can, your cutting edge is outdated by 6 months from now sometimes.
The minute you order, right?
Yeah. That's unfortunate. Again, like you said, time is money. The quicker that you could have gotten that up and running, you could have been in there with what is still state of the art and still, been able to be making revenue in that location before you had to, then start investing in the newer, right? The newer. Oh, that's so sad. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. I know, especially the big cities are, because people, went remote, and there's a lot of office space that's not, not being used. But there's some things that are always going to, restaurants and
Retail.
bakeries, things, retail, things like that are, always going to have, well, medical also,
Absolutely.
right?
Educational.
Location. Yeah.
And flex warehouse. Flex warehouses is also, as we hear so much about distribution centers, data centers, that flex warehouse niche is good.
So that's where to invest in flex warehouse space. What else do you think from, kind of your industry or your, expertise? What do you think, you have any other gems to share with like small business owners, or maybe pet peeves that people do that you wish that they, they knew about before it so they didn't keep asking you these questions?
I think that we've been really fortunate in that in the 10 years that we've been established, most of our revenue has come from word of mouth. And so we produce a quality product, oftentimes under budget and ahead of schedule, which is kind of a unicorn idea in our world. And so the people that come to us are aware of our reputation, are aware of what we deliver. And so we really have been lucky in working with some amazing clients that we've maintained some powerful relationships with over these years. I would say if there's a peeve, it's really just, for me, it's lead time. There are so many things in our industry that are out of our control. And I wish some of our clients understood that our budgets are based off of, the date that we provided the estimate. And depending on when that project actually kicks off, that number has probably changed. If you think about just groceries, right? You go to the grocery store now with the same list that you used a year ago. Are you going to pay the same amount that you paid a year ago? No. So the materials that we use and our subs are using are also impacted by this skyrocketing inflation that we're seeing.
Yeah, I kind of remember because we got a deck during COVID, and the lumber prices had skyrocketed. I mean, ridiculous percentage from what it had been. And it was and we were able to so at that point they were kind of like locking in your price. And I think that was just because there was a lot of competition because so many people were doing home improvement projects because they were home staring at their ugly house.
Right.
So it was kind of, I think they were trying to lock people in, we'll lock you in at this price, even if the materials changed. But that I think was more of a marketing sort of concept than, reality.
Well, I will tell you that some of it is based in reality. And I can give you an example of a project we were working on a few years ago that it was impacted by that ice storm that hit Houston, this unprecedented ice storm that paralyzed that city for weeks. And all of a sudden, one of our job sites came to a screeching halt. And it was, and an outsider would be like, how in the world would an ice storm in Houston impact a construction project in Frederick, Maryland? And it comes down to the coating on some wiring that the electrical subcontractor needed. this coating is only produced outside of Houston. And that factory was shut down because they have no capacity to deal with winter conditions in Texas, right? And so all of a sudden our schedule, just blew up, and we were pivoting here and there and rescheduling crews based on when they could get this new material, right, that needed this coating from Houston.
Like obviously an integral part, but such a small, I think technically small. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, how does the coating on the wiring, like that is just absolutely ridiculous that's the thing. Like, you can understand if it was like, the forest burned down and there's no more lumber, right? Like,
right.
Like, the math is mathing, right? Like, that makes sense. But yeah, the ice storm that stops the coating for the wiring so that you can't order it.
So anybody
the wires have to go in before you can put walls up and like literally go anywhere else. It's like you can't even work around it.
Exactly. We couldn't close anything in until that wiring was delivered. And with commercial projects, you're buying mass quantities of this stuff. So, it's even if you can, we were checking distributors in other parts of the country to try and piecemeal an order together to have the quantity we needed for
5 from over here, 5 from over here. Yeah.
But so is every other, electrical subcontractor and commercial builder. So, it's almost like your last resort is to get on eBay, right? see who's trying to get rid of some, old wiring. So, I mean, just to go back to your question, a pet peeve would be just, knowing that every project is going to have a hiccup like, and so you are kind of walking on eggshells throughout construction, waiting for that anvil to fall. It's inevitable. And for a personality like me, who, I like control, I like structure, I like expected, it can be a little overwhelming or stressful at times. But that's, again, where you have to kind of flip the switch and tap into the flexible thinking side and just remind yourself, I can pivot. I am capable of handling these unexpected situations. And thankfully, I have a team, too, that I can lean on when I'm struggling with the stresses of some of these things, because in Mark's case, he's seen it all before, right? And so, he can talk me off the ledge when I feel like, this is too much to handle. Or, we reach out to the subcontractors and they give us assurances because they're able to do a different scope of work while they wait for the material, or
you can kind of put them on a different project. Yeah, kind of.
All of a sudden, you're getting things are moving into place that you didn't think would work, but then it does, right? Because everybody's in the same boat. Everybody feels the same pain point, and they're just willing to join forces in creative ways to get the job done, regardless of if it follows the schedule to a T.
Right. Yeah. Right. So there you go. That's your thing. Be patient and understand that some of the things are out of your GC's control. And that they are in the background doing everything that they can to get it back under their control. But you can't do anything about the place in Texas being closed because of an ice storm, or it's just stuff getting held up. I heard too about like things that got stuck on the ships because the port of
because of the Key Bridge.
Yeah. Just like way out of anybody's control. Like literally, And still, right, people are going to complain, like, where's my thing, right?
Well,
Like,
and
why
even more
isn't it
recently,
here?
all the
And
snow, right?
It's been all over the news that the bridges fell, the ships can't get in. Like, it's a global, or not even a global, but it's a nationwide kind of, it's a more widespread problem than your one project. But, you know, I think that's where somebody like you comes in, though, is that you have a good team like that that's going to do everything they can to either pivot or come up with some sort of, think outside the box idea to keep things moving, or to, find a new way, and, make sure that you're either going to get back on schedule, or that, you're at least going to, save money or something, right? Like find a way to make that work out in your favor.
I definitely think that's a superpower of Ternion builders. And like people might look at our small team and think that's a weakness, but every member of our team touches your project on the daily. And so, if we have to pivot, you have our full workforce behind you in terms of trying to come up with that creative solution. So that everything does stay on budget as much as possible and stays on schedule as much as possible. I can't say that for our competitors, but I do think that a small team, while it does feel like we can be spread thin at times, provides a level of service that is unmatched.
Yeah, there's less opportunities for you to fall through the cracks because you are the focus, right? You're not taking on as many projects. You don't have 30 projects that are in motion and one gets stuck and you forget to follow up with that you know what I mean? Like I think you can get kind of lost in the weeds.
Right.
And, the smaller team has a much better handle because they don't have as many projects. So their attention is more direct.
The same is true. Going back to our observations about community banks, being able to pick up the phone and talk to a person instead of, going through the automated system. Same is true for any client of ours. They can pick up the phone and they'll always get a person on the other end who's familiar with their project. They're not going to get put on hold and, sent to a different department. Yeah. Or they're not going to, have to leave a message for a team member to call back a day or a week later. They're always going to get somebody that is familiar with the project, has been involved with the project since before construction started, and will be able to deliver an answer or a solution right away.
Yeah, I love that. All right, any final thoughts before we call it quits?
Final thoughts. Oh no. So this is the beauty of this is just another validating point to why I belong in construction, because I like having plans. I like ideas thrown at me that, I can then modify or revise. A blank sheet of paper scares me to death. And so an open-ended question like final thoughts.
Yeah,
all of a sudden everything just goes.
And tell me to like draw a picture of a tree or something, like, or just draw something. Yeah, draw something. No, don't tell me that. I can't. But if you give me something to start with, but then I'm like, great, I can throw some ideas at it. Yeah, I love that.
And so that's where collaborating with clients is really powerful, because if they come to me and they say, all right, I am building a medical office. I need 3 exam rooms. I need a reception area. I need an office for myself. Okay, that I can take that and put it onto paper.
And here's the, the floor plan or whatever. And you're like, cool, let me shuffle it and figure out how to fit them all in there. Yeah. Because now it's a puzzle. Now it's a really fun puzzle to try and, you know what I mean? Like, people pay money to do those things, right? Like,
that's right.
Like,
it's no different than the Wordle.
I'm with you. I love a good puzzle, but yeah, the blank page, no, but the puzzle to fit the pieces right. Chef's kiss.
Yes, indeed. It's just Tetris.
Yeah. what I think what's fun too is like to find, oh, we have like a leftover, or we have something, or you have to find like a creative way to like fit the pieces together. Yeah, I feel like I would have a lot of fun with that. If I ever need a third career, maybe I know where I should go. If I get sick of doing accounting, designing, floor plans is like the next step.
Yeah,
That'll work for
absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. Or greenhouses. I see all those plants.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know. Cause my degree was in animal behavior, was sort of zoology before that. And yeah, I thought if I like ever went back and like redid my life or something, I'm like, oh, I probably should have gone into like botany instead of the animal stuff. I should have gone botany, and then I would have been, in better shape, but I don't know. I can do both, right? Like I can
So I take some wisdom from my 23-year-old kid who is a total history and math nerd, but yet like has this amazing artistic ability and is always drawing, always creating, always making something. And when
that definitely sounds like a good architect, or
right?
Yeah.
Right. When he
Engineer
was looking at schools after high school to apply to and declare, his major, I was like, well, why not Micah? Like, that seems like a perfect fit for you if you are so artistic and it's already your superpower. So then you can just hone those skills through classes at Micah. And he said, but then I wouldn't love to do it. If I was made to do it.
His hobby.
Right. So think of your plants the same way, right? Like, would you love?
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
Would you love your plants as much as you were a professional botanist?
Yeah. Well, and I think it would be more like the like a horticulturist, because that's more about like the placement of like the care of plants in the place, as opposed to botany, which is like the actual structures, like the science behind it. Yeah, I don't want that. I like the, just taking care of them and like organizing and, kind of designing all that kind of stuff with it. So maybe that's the way. Maybe it'd be more like horticulture, which they had in high school. I should have taken it.
Right. I mean, this area is ripe.
Yeah, it's a very like, agricultural, small town. And so, yeah, they had like horticulture and stuff. I didn't take that. I should have. I was at that time early on, like in high school, I was like, again, I'm like old, I'm getting old now. So like, doing like web design, like I thought I was going to be like a web designer. I don't know why I did not realize at the time that I have no, like, again, blank white page, design a website. That was never going to work for me.
Well, and guess what?
I was just trying to like get in on the trend, I think, of like, this is going to be big. Like, I'm going to be a web designer. But I took a class at FCC when I was in college and realized very quickly that was a poor decision. So that's probably why I didn't do the horticulture, that sort of, I wasn't going to be a farmer. I was kind of like, oh no, I'm going to be this like kind of tech savvy, which I use a lot of tech now. So I am still a very like,
here you are podcasting. So come on now.
Very tech forward accountant, but, I
mean, some great closing observations would be that like it really showcases that there are careers out there like bookkeeping, like horticulture, like construction that AI will never be able to take the place of. And so anyone starting out a business has that added pressure, right? Of thinking about like, if I'm going to be a graphic designer, how is my graphic design business going to stand out from anything somebody can create with AI? Or, if I'm going to be a computer scientist or a software engineer, will my skills be relevant for web design or something like that? When they're, the AI industry is booming and now people can do it from their couch. So, I mean, I think it's really powerful to tell new businesses and entrepreneurs to be, thinking future friendly, And, you know, if they can find a
part of it, I
niche.
think, is the learning to use AI and adopting the AI as part, you know, it's always going to have to be that human-led tool. That's, you know, the way that I'm seeing it, where a lot of people are talking that this is a big boom and it's gonna kind of, it's gonna be like the .com bubble, right? That
Right.
it's
We're going yeah.
burst. Yeah.
And
Because people are still the customers, right? The people who are going to spend money on your stuff want to buy the stuff from a human. Like, you don't want to buy stuff or whatever services from an AI robot, right? Like, we still want to have a person that we talk to, or, you know, and even if that, or, you know, there's no way that anybody's going to be able to be an expert in accounting AI and graphic design AI, right? Like, in all these things, like, you're still going to need that expert that knows how to use the AI for whatever that like industry or that specific, you know, niche, like that service or whatever. So you're still going to need to have the expert that knows how to use it, that can, like, you know, use it and or translate what it's telling you. That's a lot of what I am, you know, seeing going forward is, sure, the AI can do a lot of the things that I do. It's going to be less data entry, you know, sort of intensive. But that's going to translate into more of the advisory side of things and being able to translate, hey, if the AI, because right now we have like AI financial summaries. You can go into QuickBooks right now and get an AI financial summary, and it's
sure can.
mine says, oh, you have an anomaly in April. Like, I don't know. I guess it was, I don't remember what it was, down, up, whatever. And it's like, okay, cool. What does that mean? Right? Like, don't just tell me I have an anomaly, or, oh, this is up 10%. Okay, well, you're going to need to have the person that's going to be able to like explain why, or work through you. You know what I mean? Like, really like translate that into something that is useful information. An accountant looking at it, it's like, cool, this is great. But to be able to translate that into something the average business owner understands is a whole different skill. You know, a lot of the CPA accountants don't have that skill. I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in with a client and their CPA, and the CPA is yapping off a whole bunch of stuff, and they're just kind of blank face staring. And so I wait till he finishes, and then I'm like, okay, so what that means, let me translate that for you, because that was a lot of accountant speak that didn't make any sense. And so I'm kind of bridging that gap of the accountant speak, accounting, and also being a business owner myself, and like understanding the mindset of a business owner, especially, right? Like that one that wears many hats. Like, what does this mean for that hat or for this hat, right? Like, what does that mean in all of these different little sectors? And, you know, how can you, you know, kind of make sense of everything that's going on? Because it does all come down to the numbers, and that does in your industry too, right? Like, there's going to be people who have this great grand design idea, and like you said, they find a space and it's too big, it's too small, they don't have the budget for it, the bank's not going to lend it, and somebody like you is going to come in and say, okay, well, here's how we can pivot, right? This is what you can afford, so here's what we could do. Here's a different space. Let's look at this one that's smaller, you know, whatever it is, right? And so that's, I think, where you're always going to be the person that you have the creative ideas, because they're not going to think in that mode because they're wearing all these other hats.
Right.
You know, they're the business. They've already got like 16 hats, and designing their, you know, new bakery is only part, you know, I'm sure they have some ideas, but if their ideas turn out to be not realistic, right? Not plausible. It's like, well, that was what I got, you know?
Right. Well,
And how do I make it actually happen? I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on here, Jill. I appreciate it. We had such a fun conversation the first time we met. We've talked a couple times. And so that's really why I wanted to start this podcast, because I have these interesting conversations. And so instead of just having them by myself, which I love to do, and meet people one-on-one, I would love to I'm trying to get people to come on and share those stories with a wider audience. So, you know, because there's just lots of little, you know, great little pieces in there that I think, you know, we've said multiple times that translate into any industry, or, you know, just the universalness of being a business owner. And so it's amazing to just hear everybody's journey, how they're different, how ours are so similar, even though they're or 4 different industries, right? Started out one way and went to pivoted.
I wish you all the best as this podcast grows. We're always here in case you need us.
And where can people find you?
Ternion Builders is based here in the city of Frederick, Maryland. So they can find us on the internet at www.ternionbuilders.com. We also have presences on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. And that's it for this episode of the Not Your Typical Business podcast. Catch you next time.